everybody. Hope everyone's having a good day, a good evening so far. I'm Autumn. Tonight we'll be doing a yin yoga class. With our yin classes, we do move a little bit slower. We hold poses for a couple of minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. I'll be using my watch to keep track of the time. We will use a prop at the end. We'll be in a supported bridge pose towards the end of class. So if you have a yoga block at home, that's great to use. If you don't have one at home, you can also just use like a rolled up towel, and we'll just be using that for some hip support. So take a minute to gather whatever you need for class, any of those props, maybe a nice smelling candle, whatever you need, some water, and we'll get started in just a moment. You can make your way to the mat. We're just going to get started in a nice, easy seated position. So whether it's a cross-legged Sukhasana or you can take hero's pose, you can extend the legs out in front. Just find a comfortable position to come to. And we'll start off with a little seated meditation for the start of class this evening. So once you make your way there, allow the body to sink down into the mat. Allow the eyes to close. Allow the hands to rest maybe on top of the knees or in the lap. Start to turn your awareness, turn your attention inside. So direct that awareness to inside of the body. Allow any thoughts, any emotions, any feelings that come up, allow them to come here. Allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you need to feel right in this moment. Our goal here is not necessarily to change those thoughts or change any emotions that we're having, but just to sit with them. Allow them to be there. And allow us to be the observer. Try not to make any judgments here about yourself or about that inner voice. Just let it be. Take a few more deep breaths, breathing into that belly space. Maybe placing a hand on top of the belly so you can feel the expansion as you inhale. And feel that space empty out as you exhale. Take just a few more moments here, a few more breaths. If you'd like to set an intention for our practice tonight, take a moment or two to bring one to mind. allow the eyes to open. And we'll take one more breath here together in this seated position, bringing the arms out to the side. Inhale, reaching up as you sweep those arms up overhead. Exhale, bring the hands down to heart center. And we'll start to move into our first yin posture for the class. So taking your time, make your way up to a standing position. The first pose that we're going to take is called a dangling pose. So allow the feet to plant down into the mat, about hips width distance. Allow all four corners of the feet to root down. Allow the knees to be soft here, so you can have a slight bend like this, or maybe you need more of a bend, whatever feels best for your body. If you have lower back issues or if you have high blood pressure, you may want to take this pose on the ground. Take a seated caterpillar with the legs extended out long in front. But if you're in that dangling pose, allow the front of the body, the top of the body, to just drop down here and hang heavy. Again, keeping those knees soft. And settling in here. We'll be in this pose for a total of 3 minutes. So finding that rhythm of the breath, maybe that rhythm of the heart rate, and surrender to the pose. As we stay in this pose, you may start to feel the crown of the head pulling down towards the mat, maybe inching towards the mat a little bit more. It's okay to let this happen. It's okay to sink deeper into this posture. We're just at our halfway point. Take a few more breaths wherever you are. And then to start to come out of this pose, we'll take the feet a little bit wider, so wider than hips distance, keeping the head and the neck down. And then point the toes out into a V shape about 45 degrees. And we're just going to drop the hips down, coming into a squat. Let the head and the neck come up slowly to avoid any rush to the head. And take a moment here. We were in that inversion for a while, so just take a minute to regroup and reconnect with the breath. You can let those sits bones sink all the way down to the mat and come back into an easy seated position. Maybe you find a tall spine here and close the eyes for a moment. Come back to that center. And then when you're ready to move into our next posture, we're going to lay the right leg across the top of the mat, so that right leg is at about a 90-degree angle. It can be angled in a little bit more if that feels good for you. And then the left leg we're going to keep out to the side. Again, that back heel can tuck in towards the sits bones if that feels best for your anatomy. This is called deer pose. So once we have the legs set up, we're going to take a twist towards the right, so towards that front leg, twisting from the lower spine. And you can stay here if this feels good for you, if this is a good amount of a twist. If you'd like to, you can drop down to the forearms right in front of that left thigh. So you may want to use a pillow or a towel or a blanket here to rest the forehead on. Once you find a variation that feels good for you, sink in, settle in, and prepare to be here for 2 minutes. We're almost finished here on this side. So take your last few breaths. If you are down on the forearms, you can press the palms into the mat and start to make your way back upright. We'll bring both knees in front for a moment and take a few rounds of windshield wiper as a counter pose here. So maybe releasing some tension or some tightness in the lower back and in the hips. And then moving on to the other side, we'll bend that left knee out in front at about a 90-degree angle, a right angle, and then tuck that right knee behind you. That heel can be moving in towards the sits bones, or it can stay out a little bit further away from the body if that feels good. So taking a moment here to assess how the legs are feeling. Finding that tall spine And then when you're ready, taking the twist towards that left side. So again, you have the option to stay upright here, or if you'd like to, maybe you travel down to the forearms. Let the head and the heart sink down. And prepare to be here again for 2 minutes. So if you're noticing any thoughts or emotions coming up as we're holding these poses, just allow them to be, allow them to pass through, and resist making that judgment. Take one more breath here in your deer pose. And then press into the mat, making your way up to that seated position. Bringing the legs out in front. And again, taking a few rounds of windshield wiper. We'll start to make our way onto the back now, coming into that supported bridge pose. So this is the time to get any of those props that you have, whether it's a rolled up towel or blanket or a block. And as we make our way down to our back, taking your time to get there, we're going to slide that prop, either the block or the blanket or the towel, right under the hips. So lifting, driving into the heels, and setting that prop up right on the sacrum. So take a minute to adjust that. And then once you have that all adjusted, you can let the upper body sink down, feeling the shoulder blades press into the mat, allowing the arms to relax. So we have the option here to straighten the legs out if you want to make this a bit of a deeper stretch, a little more intense. So again, if you have any lower back issues, I would encourage you to keep the knees lifted. But if you'd like to, just the option to straighten the legs out. And then staying here if this feels good for you. Another option is to bring the arms up overhead and kind of feeling a full body stretch as we're in this supported bridge pose. So take a moment to settle into the posture, the variation that feels best, that serves you tonight. And prepare to be here for 3 minutes. Notice if you're holding any tension in the forehead and that space between the eyebrows. Maybe you're clenching that jaw, or you have your hands in fists. On the next breath, send some new breath, some fresh air to those areas, and see if you have any room to soften. We're almost at our 3-minute mark here. So take one more full inhale, full exhale. And then to start to come out of this pose, if you have the legs extended, carefully bring the knees back up as the heels plant down into the mat. Return the arms down by the sides. And then we're going to just carefully remove our prop, so pressing in with the heels to lift the hips and slide that prop out from underneath the sacrum, placing it off to the side. Pull those knees into the chest. This should feel pretty good on that low back right now. So maybe take some movement from side to side. Maybe make a few circles with the knees and massage that lower back area. So keeping the knees bent and pulled in towards the chest, we'll make a 90-degree, a right angle with the legs and set up for some reclined twists. So you have the option to bring the arms out into a T next to the body. And then when you're ready to move into the twist, we'll just drop both knees over to one side. And maybe the gaze goes in the opposite direction. So make sure that both shoulders are pressing into the mat. The whole back, the whole upper back is staying pressed into the mat. You may want to put the hand, the opposite hand, on top of the thighs to add a little bit of weight here and deepen that twist. So we'll be holding this for another 3 minutes. just over the halfway mark for our spinal twist. So stay where you are. Continue to listen to the rhythm of the breath to guide you. On the next inhale, draw the knees back to center. Gently lower that right hip back down to the mat. And again, maybe take some movement from side to side here. And notice how that lower back is feeling. When you're ready for the next side, we'll bring the knees together into that right angle, maybe bringing the arms out to the side into a T, just as an option. And then dropping the knees over to the opposite side as our gaze goes over towards the opposite hand. with the next inhale, begin to draw the knees into the chest, coming back to the center, and taking a breath here. On the next exhale, send the feet long to the bottom of the mat and bring the arms up overhead so you're in a full body stretch, lengthening all the way from fingers to toes. We'll start to walk the heels, walk the feet over a couple of inches towards the right. And then walk the upper body a couple of inches towards the right as well. So we're coming into like a half moon or a C shape with the spine. So option to cross that left ankle over top of the right here to deepen that side stretch a little bit more. So once you've found your way here, settle into the pose. Allow that breath to fill up that whole left side body. And we'll be here with this side stretch for 1 more minute. Start to uncross the ankles if you have them crossed, and inch the heels back into the center of the mat as you move the upper body, returning to that straight line, straight up and down. And again, reaching the hands overhead for a full length stretch here. And then preparing for the opposite side. Start to inch the heels over to the left, maybe crossing that right ankle over top. And then moving the upper body, those shoulder blades over to that same side. So the arms and the feet are moving in the same direction to come into that half moon C shape. And we'll be here for 2 minutes. Feeling that full opening along the whole side of the right side body. Take a few more rounds of breath on this side. And then lower the arms down, bringing them back next to the ribs. As you bring the heels back into center, we'll pull the knees in towards the chest one final time, giving yourself one final hug of gratitude and taking any final movements that you need before we come into our Shavasana, our final resting pose. So when you're ready for stillness, allow the heels to come to the corner of the mat. Allow the hands to rest next to the side body, palms facing up. Close the eyes and settle into your Shavasana. Start to bring awareness back to the body and back to the breath. Taking some gentle movements in the fingers and in the toes. When you feel ready, coming on to one side and pausing here, allowing all of your practice to sink in. And then taking as much time as you'd like, coming up into that seated position just as we started class today. Bringing the hands to heart center. Taking one full inhale and exhale that out. We'll draw the thumb knuckle up to the third eye, and together we'll bow and say Namaste. Thank you guys for joining me tonight for this yin practice. I hope you have a great rest of your evening and a great rest of your week.